thank you so much for joining us virtually. My name is Allison Pennell. I'm the Development Director for the Oregon Garden Foundation and also an avid gardener myself. Because we can't bring you our Garden University in person this month, we've decided to help celebrate National Public Gardens Week by bringing some of it to you digitally. So I'm going to be focusing on doing 3 planting containers, one focusing in on pollinators, and one focusing on shade plants, and then another really nice vibrant sun plant. So some of the main principles of design also apply to plant container design. You want to make sure you have a good balance, a good variety. I like to really use a big variety of different textures and then the other thing that's more specific to planting design is you really want to focus on bloom time, especially because you oftentimes, if you have a smaller garden or a patio without a lot of greenery, containers are a great way to add gardening to your life, no matter what your budget or what your space is. This is part of our member benefit Garden University program, where we do a monthly lecture or workshop. We do topics ranging from bonsai to making wreaths in the winter, and it's all a way for Oregon Garden members to get more out of their membership. Classes and lectures are typically free to members, and workshops also give a discount. So this is a great way to get more involved with the garden and learn practical skills here. This is a great sun container. This has a nice balance. I chose to actually do a phormium and a shrub so that these will have to be taken out later, but part of the plant selection is just making sure that you can see this is the front, but that you can see balance and fullness all throughout the whole container. So we have this, which will trail down. These flowers, when they're done blooming, you can pinch those back and they'll probably rebloom. And then also the foliage will get nice and full there. And then I really like the red stems, how they highlight some of the more tangerine tones in this HUECERELLA and in the phormium. And then the yellow will just wanted something that would keep blooming because this is pretty heavy on foliage and texture. I just wanted to give that, that really summer fun feel of getting flowers in your garden. And then for the shade one, we have 2 different begonias. This is a really cool begonia. The begonias need to be brought in, and the heliotrope is an annual. But these others, the Japanese painted fern, the black mondo grass, and the EPIMEDIUM in the back, these can all be planted in a woodland shade garden after you're done with this container. And then for the pollinator ones, another great way to save on a budget is to have perennial plants. So these will all come back each year and give a nice buffet to different butterflies and bees and pollinators in your garden. Well, first I'm going to just talk a little bit about how to start your containers. The great thing about pretty much any plant can go in a container, and so you don't have to, it's a great way to try new plants, to learn about new plants, and to get more variety in your garden. So the first one I'm going to do is a shade container. This is a really cool begonia. I thought when I first saw it that it was either a hellebore or maybe an Aurelia, but it's begonia luxurians. It's not hardy. The other thing is with containers, you want to always be able to have your pot go out so that you can later take them apart and put them in your own garden. So I'm just going to go ahead and get started. The cool thing, I really love the texture of this. When you're doing containers, it's a great way to mix and match different textures. And this is not hardy, so in the fall, before we get the first frost, we're gonna have to bring it in and make sure that it's protected from any frost. This is black mondo grass. This is a really great versatile grass. It's mostly part shade but a little bit of sun keeps that nice dark blade. We have this for sale at the retail nursery at the Oregon Garden. So sometimes as you go through stuff, I've already filled this with a nice loose potting soil, and it also has a slow release fertilizer in there so that because it's in a container, it's not able to get fertilizer and get nutrients from the soil unless you put it in there. So as things fall apart, you just kind of repot them easily enough. And what you're really going for is also a balanced container. Depending on where it is, this one's going to be for shade, so it's going to want to be protected from the afternoon sun. And typically that would mean that you want it to probably stop getting sun before noon. This is a Japanese painted fern. It's really a nice texture. I like to use a lot of different textures and different colors in my containers. And then the other thing is, as you're planting, you want to make sure that you're keeping the soil level similar so that you don't have something sunk down. This is heliotrope. This is an annual flower with a really nice fragrance, and I also really like to mix annuals and perennials. So far the mondo grass, the fern, those can go in your garden afterwards. The heliotrope, you can try to bring it in as a house plant, but they're not super reliable that way. You could also take cuttings and overwinter it, but typically it'll just be for one season, annual. And then I like to do some repetition in the containers, so I'm going to add a little more mondo grass. And this is going to get adjusted, so just as you go, you're just going to have to adjust things, you're going to have to change it. I like to have a little bit of asymmetrical balance to mine, but keep it really nice and full through the whole pot. This is a really cool little epimedium. This one can go out in your garden. It blooms in the spring, and it's actually pretty evergreen, so you can put that in the garden after. And then this is another little begonia. This is one that we've grown here in our annuals. So I'm just gonna really stuff this one. And then you can kind of get the full effect. So this would be really good under a covered porch, under a place that gets nice morning sun but would need protection from the afternoon sun. So now I'm going to do a sun example. So typically people get sometimes confused about what is full sun or part shade. So full sun is really plants that want that hot afternoon sun, typically at least 6 hours of direct sunlight. And if you're doing a container, that's usually not going to be on the west or the south side of your house. So these are plants that really, want that hot sun. A lot of them have a lot more vibrant colors. So this is a phormium. Phormiums are actually getting more and more reliably hardy here in the Northwest. So you could keep this out for the winter. This DRIMYS, this is a shrub that wants to be quite a bit larger. So these would both be plants that you'd want to keep in your containers and then probably plant out into your garden later after probably about a year or two. Similar to the other pot, we want to make sure that your pot is going outward. It's really frustrating for gardeners when they get a really beautiful pot and then put a tree or a shrub that overgrows it, and if it's like an egg-shaped or has a more narrow top, it can be really difficult. So because this has so many roots, I'm just going to open this up so that it can really get its water and nutrients from this potting soil. And these are kind of sharing the focal point, so I'm going to kind of offset them for balance. I have a good variety here of different heucheras and heucerellas. These are heuchera and tiarella mixes, and so these are great for containers. They have a wide variety of colors from green to yellow. Typically the yellow, the lighter the leaf, wants to be in a little bit more shade, and then the darker leaves can handle more. So because I'm going to use these, these ones will be really good for full sun still. A lot of the time in the spring, stuff is not fully rooted in the pot, so you don't have to be too careful. You just want to keep that main root ball. And I'm going to be taking out a little soil. Another common mistake with containers is sometimes people do the soil level too high, and so then that can be a problem with your watering. You want to just, when it's finished, have it right under the lip so that you get a good nice soak when you water everything. I really like to use in containers different colors or different varieties of the same type of plant. And these, these are actually really easy to divide in a home garden. You can kind of already see the different crowns forming. So if this was at my home, I would probably divide this next fall and get these out in the garden to multiply more plants. Is perennial. So I kind of face that. I'm going to make this the front, so I'm going to just rotate this. So all of these are perennial or shrub for the DRIMYS, but I'm going to add some annuals because a lot of the time people really want that summer color. So this is a little mini petunia. This is going to keep growing all summer and keep blooming. So no matter what's going on with the more permanent evergreen things, this will just give you the nice flowers. And then this is a sweet potato vine. This is a great trailer, so these are both going to trail over to soften the edge. And you can see some of these, when you get these annuals early in the spring, they're really not that well rooted, so it's really easy to fit them into the pot. I tend to break off roots rather than to compact them. I feel like that keeps them really growing into the soil in the container. And also, sometimes people get a little intimidated about, you know, when your plants break with petunias and annuals, anything like that. It's actually really good practice to just even pinch them back, and then it'll be more bushy, and then you'll get more flowers. So here is this really fun finished product. Always fill them about 2/3 of the way up, and just make sure your soil is nice and loose. You really don't want it compacted. That can add to problem watering issues. And this next one is going to be all about pollinators. Everybody loves pollinators, and it's a great way to get more wildlife and more plant variety into your garden. This is black and blue salvia. It's pretty reliably hardy here in the Northwest. It hasn't always been. And then you can see this root ball. I'm just gonna really get after this. But these flowers, after they're done blooming, you pinch them back right at the, turn it here, right here. If you pinch that back, then you're gonna actually get more flower shoots. And this will keep blooming all the way through September. So another big important part of container design is, especially for summer things, is you do wanna have the containers be adding something of bloom throughout the season. So we also have this columbine. These are both favorites of hummingbirds, as you can kind of see by the flower shape. So columbine will start blooming as early as April, and they typically, if you pinch them back, they will do a little bit of a rebloom. Not quite as much as the salvia, but they'll still keep the new blooms coming. And so to balance, I'm going to add 2 of those. And these have been propagated here at the retail nursery at the Oregon Garden. So because this one is a little more practical, there's a bit of a balance issue here, but because we really do want to have this container be a nice food source for hummingbirds, I'm going to have kind of these competing height plants and not let it bother me too much. Once this is totally done blooming in about June, I would probably snap this back, and then this would just be a kind of a small filler plant at that time. This is Golden-JUBILEE HYSSOP. This is a great one for butterflies and bees. It's going to have this nice golden foliage. It can take all of these can take full hot afternoon sun. It's going to get these little spikes of purple flowers that are very attractant to bees and butterflies. So sometimes you'll get moss or liverworts on the top of your pots. I just break those off, but they don't really cause any problem if you were to leave them. And so this one is going to kind of get tall and take the place of the columbine in about 6 weeks or so, but for now it's just going to kind of fill that bottom part. It's another one that when it's done blooming, you can just cut it way back down, and then it'll just send up brand new flower spikes all summer. A little more room here. And this whole pot is going to be perennial material, so this will, I would probably leave it in this pot up to about 2 years or so, and then you're going to have some crowding issues with the plants. But everything will die back in the winter and come back again. So this is a nice way, if you're on a budget, to not have to spend so much on annuals, which will only bloom for one season. All this stuff will keep coming back. And then this last one, I'm gonna really get the root ball small so I can get it to fit, but this is TEUCRIUM. It's also known as wall germander. We use this a lot as a pollinator attractant here at the Oregon Garden. I'm just gonna really get this to be able to fit here in my pot. So this one's actually semi-evergreen, when it's gonna put out little purple flowers that are very heavily visited by bees. We use it here. You can use it a lot of places in the landscape. We use it here as actually a replacement for boxwood in some of our more formal gardens. We have it hedged, so and it's very easy to propagate. So I'm just going to fill in with the TEUCRIUM in these other holes in the back here. Knowing that I've really ripped up this root system, I'm going to be extra vigilant on the watering as all these plants get established together. And just adding some soil to the top here to fill in these gaps, and making sure that there is room so that I can fully water this and get everything evenly moist. People often have watering questions about containers, and you really do have to kind of get to know your plants, get to check the container. People often ask, how much do I have to water a week? I'd say probably in the heat of the summer, you may have to water, you definitely have to water annuals once a day at least. Sometimes even in the afternoon again if they're in hot sun. For perennials, they usually can handle a bit more time between the waterings, but you really should be checking every day what your soil is doing.